Hey, welcome back to Fix It Yourself, Episode 7. If your computer's been crawling lately, taking forever to boot, freezing when you open a browser, or just feeling tired, you're in the right place. The good news? You almost certainly don't need a new PC. We're going to walk through a simple 5-minute checklist together, and by the end, your machine should feel noticeably faster. No tech skills required. So before we touch anything, let's name the usual suspects. 9 times out of 10, a sluggish computer comes down to one of 4 things. Too much open at once, all those apps and browser tabs quietly eating up memory. Too many programs launching the moment you hit the power button. A hard drive that's packed so full it has no room to breathe. Or simply a machine that hasn't been restarted or updated in weeks. We'll tackle them in order. And the moment your computer feels snappy again, you can stop. And that brings us straight to step 1. Restart. I know, it's the oldest trick in the book, but it really is the single most effective fix because it clears out memory, shuts down anything that's frozen, and lets pending updates finally finish installing. One important thing though, use restart, not shut down. On modern PC, shutting down actually skips the cleanup thanks to a feature called Fast Start. Only restart forces a proper fresh beginning. So, if you can't remember the last time you did this, that's your answer. Do it now and see if things already feel a little snappier. If a restart didn't fully do the trick, step 2 is to find out what's actually eating up your resources. And good news, your computer already has a built-in tool for exactly that. On Windows, press Ctrl, Shift, and Escape together to open Task Manager. On a Mac, hit CMD plus space and type Activity Monitor. Then click the CPU and memory columns to sort them. Whatever's sitting at the top of the list is your culprit. No guessing, just facts. So once you've spotted the troublemaker at the top of that list, here's how to handle it. If it's your browser hogging everything, and honestly, 9 times out of 10 it is, just close the tabs you're not actively reading. If a specific app is pinned at 100%, click it and hit End Task on Windows or Force Quit on Mac, then reopen it fresh. Now, if you see something with a weird name you don't recognize, pause, search it online first before shutting it down, because some of those are system processes you actually need. And if everything just looks high across the board, you might simply be running too much at once, or your computer could use more memory, and we'll tackle that next. Now let's talk about the sneaky stuff. All those apps that quietly launch themselves the moment you power on your machine, then just sit there eating resources in the background. On Windows, open Task Manager, head to the Startup Apps tab, and right-click anything you don't need at boot, Spotify, Teams, those silent updaters, and hit Disable. On a Mac, it's System Settings, then General, then Login Items, and use the minus button to remove what doesn't need to be there. And don't worry, disabling just means it won't auto-launch. The app's still installed, ready whenever you actually want it. On to step 4, Tap Door, and this one's the easiest of the bunch. A drive that's almost full will drag everything down, so you want to keep at least 10 to 15% breathing room. Start by emptying the recycle bin or trash, because deleted files don't actually leave until you do that. Then run the built-in cleanup tool, Storage Sense on Windows or Storage, and then Recommendations on a Mac. Finally, sweep through your Downloads folder, which is usually a graveyard of installers, and uninstall any old apps you forgot were even there. Now, a quick warning before we move on. If you've ever seen a flashing ad screaming that your PC has 500 errors, or a pop-up begging you to download some miracle speed booster, close it. Those tools almost never help. At best, they nag you into paying, and at worst, they install the very junk and malware that slow your computer down. The cleanup tools built into Windows and Mac are free, safe, and genuinely all you need. Speaking of safe built-in tools, that brings us nicely to step 5. 2 quick jobs here. First, install any pending updates. Open Windows Update or macOS Software Update, let it do its thing, and restart. You'd be surprised how often that alone fixes the slowdown. Second, run a malware scan. because if your computer suddenly got slow and stayed slow, something hidden could be quietly working in the background. Windows security is built right in and does the job. On Mac, use a trusted scanner. We go deeper into this in episode 48. Now, if you've worked through all the software fixes and your computer's still dragging, it might not be your fault at all. The hardware itself could be the limit. Two upgrades make the biggest difference. Swapping an old spinning hard drive for an SSD is hands down the single best thing you can do for an older machine. Boots and apps suddenly open in seconds. And if your memory was pinned near 100%, adding more RAM lets you run more at once. Aim for 8 gigabytes at minimum, 16 if you can. Here's a bonus one a lot of people miss. Heat. If your laptop feels hot to the touch and the fan is screaming, it's probably throttling, which just means it's slowing itself down on purpose to avoid cooking. The fix is usually physical. Blow the dust out of the vents, set it on a hard, flat surface instead of a bed or your lap, and never block the underside because that's where it breathes. Before we wrap up the fixes, let's talk about a few things to avoid because these are the traps that eat up an afternoon for no reason. Skip the so-called cleaner apps. They usually cause more slowdowns than they solve. And your built-in tools do the same job for free. Don't rush out to buy a new PC either. A small SSD or memory upgrade often brings an old machine right back to life. Restart at least once a week. And please don't go deleting system files you don't recognize. Use the built-in cleanup and let it do the guessing for you. So here's your 5-minute checklist, top to bottom. Start with a proper restart. Actually shut down and power back up, not just close the lid. Then open Task Manager or Activity Monitor and close whatever's hogging the most resources. Trim down your startup apps. Free up disk space using only the built-in tools, and finish with updates plus a quick malware scan. Honestly, most computers feel noticeably snappier after just these 5 steps. New hardware really is the last resort. And if you only take one thing away from this whole video, let it be this. A slow computer is almost never broken. It's just overloaded. Think of it like a desk piled high with papers. Clear off the clutter, the apps, the startup junk, the full disk, the heat, and that same machine runs just fine again. So before you reach for your wallet and buy a new one, give it 5 minutes. New hardware should be your last resort, not your first. Now, if you're the curious type and you're wondering what memory, processes, and CPU actually are under the hood, I've got you covered. Over on the channel, there's a Linux Essentials series that takes these same ideas one level deeper. How processes and memory really work, where your files and disk space actually live, and what your PC's doing in those first few seconds when you hit the power button. Same friendly pace, just a little more behind the scenes. And speaking of the bigger picture, this little fix is just one episode in the Fix It Yourself series, where we tackle the everyday tech headaches that everyone runs into. Forgotten passwords, Wi-Fi that just won't connect, printers that swear they're offline, and how to back up your computer before you actually need to. If there's something driving you up the wall at home, drop it in the comments. It might just be the next episode. Before you head off, here's the habit that makes all of this stick. Restart your computer about once a week, keep roughly 15% of your disk free, and install updates when your computer asks. Do just that, and you won't need any cleaner apps or panic fixes. And if you want to go deeper, actually understand how computers, the web, and security work, there are full courses waiting for you over at Dargslan.com. And if you only remember 3 things from this whole video, make it these. First, restart your computer. It clears memory, finishes any pending updates, and honestly fixes most slowdowns on its own. Second, open Task Manager on Windows or Activity Monitor on a Mac and shut down whatever app is hogging the most memory. Third, empty your recycle bin and run the built-in disk cleanup. 90% of the time, that's genuinely all it takes. Now, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What was the culprit on your machine? Was it a browser drowning in 40 open tabs, some sneaky app launching itself at startup, a hard drive packed to the brim, Or maybe you upgraded to an SSD and it brought your computer back from the dead? Drop a comment and let me know. I read every single one. And that's it. Your computer should be fast again. Remember the three big ones: restart about once a week, keep some breathing room on your disk, and skip those flashy cleaner apps that usually cause more problems than they solve. If this helped, hit subscribe. I post a simple fix for a common tech problem every single week over at dargslan.com. I'll see you in the next one.